arrived at your destination.
Welcome back to Destination Pro Wrestling here on YouTube. My name is Zango, and as always, you can follow me on Twitter at TangoWithTango. And today we are talking about the Sasha Banks controversy. I gotta be honest with you guys, I waited to talk about this for a little bit because I wanted to really dive deep, and today we got a lot of stuff to cover. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about here on Destination Pro Wrestling. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button, and now YouTube has said that they fixed the notifications. So if you guys want to get notified on all of the latest pro wrestling news and rumors, make sure you guys click that bell and make sure you guys select all notifications. With that being said, guys, today we are talking about Sasha Banks quitting WWE for AEW. You probably want to know how this all started. I got my notes on the screen, so we're going to kind of touch on this. It started at Wrestlemania 35. You guys remember those reports that came out that Sasha Banks and Bayley, after they lost their women tag team title belts, that they threw a hissy fit in the locker room? There's so much kicking and screaming. I mean, literally, this is some crazy stuff. But of course, when these reports came out, it really turned the fans online against Sasha Banks, which I don't think was necessarily fair. But honestly, nobody really knows what happened here. So Sasha Banks and Bayley responded to these reports by posting on social media a photo of them celebrating with the Iconics backstage, which was opposite of what was originally reported. And I'll tell you guys the truth, with something like that, it was really, really crazy to hear that a WWE star was throwing a hissy fit. Like, backstage, kicking and screaming, things like that. It just sounded like garbage, and of course, now that we saw that post, it made a lot of sense that perhaps that did not actually happen. So, originally what happened was Bayley and Sasha dropped their titles, didn't have a very long reign at all. They dropped them to the Iconics, and that was pretty much the last of Sasha Banks on WWE television. WWE goes on to do the brand split. Well, not necessarily brand split, but it was the superstar shakeup. And of course, whenever they're drafting stars back and forth to the show, a lot of people were curious on what was going on with Bayley. Bayley had some backstage segments where she's trying to get a hold of Sasha. She's nowhere to be found. And that was pretty much the last time that WWE really mentioned Sasha Banks in a capacity where they actually cared about it. So now Bayley goes on to SmackDown. And as you guys can imagine, she starts her singles run. This is when reports come out that WWE was notified that Sasha Banks has quit. So essentially, Sasha Banks is not working her contract anymore. Like, she is not showing up, and she will not compete. And she's basically going to sit out until her contract gets canceled or whatever. Now, in this situation, when these reports originally came out, things started to change for WWE. And what I mean by that is Bayley was now given a singles run and a singles push on WWE, no longer as a tag team partner of Sasha, but instead with her eyes on the prize, which is the SmackDown Live Women's Championship. And as you guys know, she eventually goes on to win this, and we'll kind of get to that in a second. So now that it's come out that Sasha has quit WWE, at this point, it's being said that Sasha and WWE are at a standstill, no conversations, and as this is happening, Bayley's getting pushed. So we're going to talk about how this revolves around AEW in just a minute. I kind of have to give you the backstory to this. But of course, now that it's come out that Sasha has quit, Bayley's getting a push. Now recently, Bayley won the SmackDown Live Women's Championship, and the reason for this, I want to say the official reason for this, but one of the big things that has come out was WWE was essentially doing this to make Sasha Banks realize this could be her. Like, hey, this could be you feuding with Bayley for the championship. But instead, she is nowhere to be seen. So now, give it a couple weeks, reports come out that Sasha Banks is having some positive talks with WWE. And I think this is a really interesting turning point in the conversation because Sasha Banks having positive conversations about coming back, it would make sense. Obviously, she pushes merchandise. She is a top name in the women's division. There is a lot going for Sasha when she is, catered to and when she is pushed. And a lot of people are a fan of Sasha Banks, and it's very clear because the amount of merchandise she does sell. Now, at this point, we're not really sure what's going on. Talks are supposedly going well. She's at a stage where she's ready to come back to WWE. There was a point where WWE was willing to bring her back immediately after Money in the Bank and start pushing her and Bayley as the top feud. Now, keep in mind, WWE's women's division, although there is a women's evolution, which is true. Obviously, we saw some major changes with that. It seems like a lot of the girls on the roster don't get as much attention as Charlotte Flair. And unfortunately, if you're not Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, or Ronda Rousey, you're in a situation where you're not getting a lot of attention. And WWE is not going to have multiple women's storylines for whatever reason. I don't understand this, but they have a lot of storylines going on for the guys and maybe one or two storylines featuring the women. With a women's revolution, evolution, whatever you want to call it, with them really taking a stance towards women's wrestling, I feel like Sasha Banks is good enough to do something on the side while WWE is focusing on Becky Lynch. And it's very clear because now there's 2 women championship belts. Obviously, you get the point. So talks are going good with WWE. People think she's going to come back. And of course, she's silent. Now, AEW Double or Nothing comes on. Sasha Banks is tweeting about it. She's reacting. I love women's wrestling. And of course, now screenshots are coming out on social media of her interacting with AEW stars on social media, Impact stars. Oh, I want to wrestle you, whatever. And that's cool. That doesn't really do much for the rumor mill, but it's very clear that she's not really acknowledging WWE very much, but instead she's acknowledging the competition in women's wrestling. So at this point, a lot of people are now starting to figure Sasha Banks is never coming back. Now, reports have also come out again that Sasha Banks has been very influenced by the Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley indie run. And honestly, I can't blame anybody who is inspired by this because clearly this is one of the biggest things to happen in pro wrestling in a very, very long time. So now Sasha Banks is inspired by this. Although talks were going well, they weren't obviously that good enough because she's still not back on WWE television. Now, it's been reportedly said that Sasha Banks is willing to sit out the rest of her contract with WWE in order to then go to AEW after. And I know just from personal experience making these videos and talking to you guys, it's going to get a lot more hectic. After you've seen what Jon Moxley did at Double or Nothing, now he's doing, New Japan. Clearly, there is a huge market for pro wrestling outside of WWE, and this is where it gets tricky because Sasha Banks last year reportedly signed a large contract for multiple years that was guaranteeing her a push and many other things. If those contract terms are believed to be true, then it still gives me hope that Sasha could return to WWE and do something pretty big. Now, keep in mind, wrestlers are starting to get a little bit smarter. Their social media activity is starting to be a little bit of a bigger deal now because Sasha Banks clearly tweeting about Double or Nothing, clearly talking about competitive wrestlers who are in different, organizations. By her doing that, WWE has a decision to make. What can they do to make her happy? At this point, yeah, we have to push you. Yeah, we should give you more money, whatever it may be. But the problem with that is somebody like Sasha Banks, who genuinely loves wrestling, is in a situation where, honestly, she's in a situation where it's not about the money. It's not about the push. It's about things being right. And if things aren't right and it has to get this point, if it has to get to this point to be right, then clearly there's something wrong in the system. So Sasha Banks going to AEW makes a lot of sense. But what's really important for people to know too, and I really hope you guys understand this, it's not even just an AEW thing anymore. I think we see Sasha Banks in AEW at some point within the next few years. I believe if AEW keeps up this momentum, Sasha Banks will eventually get there. I do believe it will happen. But most importantly, what you guys need to know is I think Sasha Banks, taking all of her experience in WWE, has room to grow outside of AEW as well. Whether she goes to a wrestling promotion, there's so many wrestling promotions in Japan, but whether she goes to Japan, whether she goes to Mexico, whether she goes to Impact, a lot of these companies may not be able to afford her because she's such a big name, but if it's not about the money and it's purely about the wrestling, then we could see her in tons of places other than just AEW. But obviously, going back to the point that she's inspired by the Jon Moxley run, seeing what it's like to have somebody breaking away from prison, somebody without the dog leash on their neck, on their collar, this is somebody who's going to thrive outside WWE. And whether or not you agree with Sasha here, you just have to understand that at this point, she is going to be far better off without WWE. And it sucks saying that, but it's true. WWE has a leash on their talent. They don't let them run too far. They will not let them get away. Now, what's really funny, kind of going back to the social media point that I made, Mike and Maria Kanellis have re-signed for a 5-year deal on WWE. So being that they signed with WWE is really huge because for the last several weeks on social media, they've been teasing going to AEW, going to Ring of Honor. And of course, there was a lot of rumors and dirt sheets covering whether or not they were going to Ring of Honor and AEW. So because there was rumors of them leaving, what did they end up getting? A bigger contract for 5 years. Again, this could be something that you guys see popping up a lot more frequently in pro wrestling. I genuinely believe that could happen. People are using social media. They want WWE to be scared, get those contracts, get what they want out of it. And if they don't get those things, they're gone. And for everybody, I'm sure they have a different request, but it's very interesting to see what's happening here. AEW, New Japan, all these big companies out there, they are on WWE's radar. You know WWE's paying attention, but the stars of WWE are there checking it out too. So if you're Sasha, Ring of Honor, Impact, Stardom, Rise, there's so many different promotions that she could go to, but I think it's clear as day. She fits on AEW's roster, and I don't think it's a matter of when. I think it's just a matter, I don't think it's a matter of how or when, but I think it's just a matter of, it's going to happen. Simple as that. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Jeez, I can't even talk today. No big deal. If you guys want latest pro wrestling news, make sure you guys click that subscribe button, click the bell, select all notifications, and I'll see you guys next time.